Hey everybody. So I wanted to do this video because over the years, for the course of the time that I have been a Section 8 voucher holder, I've heard so much negative things about it. And trust me, from personal experience, many of those things have been true. But what I recognize, just like with any scenario, it is individuals. So with that, when it comes to bad experiences, and I'm hearing landowners dealing with Section 8 voucher participants or just their experience with Section 8, the building that they have to go through in order to deal with the whole Section 8, as well as getting inspections, etc. It can be a headache to some. But then there's just the stigma. There's the stigma that I hear from other people who were never landowners, but they just feel a certain way about people on different type of assistance, like, whether it be public assistance, where is the camera at? Whether it be public assistance or Section 8. With all of that being said, I'll tell you a little bit about my story now. After I had my son and I split from his father, I could not afford the home that I was in because his father left. And at that present time, I was actually footing the bill on myself. But I was attempting to go to school, work. It just wasn't happening as far as me trying to cover the rent alone. So I wound up moving into a home with my uncle, but then I realized I needed another place to myself because I had children. I didn't want to, bring that on my uncle. So I ended up going to affordable housing. I stayed at that particular place for about close to 2 years, and then that ended up being torn down. They was going to do some sort of revitalizing of the community, so they tore down all the affordable homes, which where I was at, it was AKA the projects, and they tore it down. And so they actually issued everyone a Section 8 voucher. They gave everyone a choice. We were either to move into another public housing community or get a Section 8 voucher, because it was very sporadic. No one really had the time to save the money and be financially prepared for the situation, or at least in my opinion, or for myself personally. I personally didn't, even though I was working at, I think at that point, maybe two jobs. It just wasn't happening. I was working at, I believe, Walmart and a bank. So with all of that, I was doing a lot, y'all. So with all of that being said, and also that's very important to understand too, because I think there, not I think, I know there is this stigma in regards and stereotype in regards to, well, people on things like public assistance as well as Section 8, they don't work. And that may be true in some people cases. I'm not certain how that hurts you as a person, like anyone who feels a certain way about that. I'm not certain how that hurts you. That person doesn't create the air that you breathe. That person has nothing to do with you going on in your life and thriving. Get away from them. If you don't like those particular group of people, you don't have to be by them. Get away from them. And I say that because it just sometimes irritates me that we can be so involved in each other's life, especially if it's not harming the other person. Like you're not harming me, what do I care what you're doing behind your closed door? I have no say. I'm not your mother. I'm not your daddy. I'm not your guy. But I understand people are always going to have their opinions. Just like with this video, I'm sure there's going to be some things said, and I'm not even going to cut off the comments because y'all, when I tell you, I'm getting ready to tell y'all my experience. So when I tell you I've just about been through it all, there's not really much you can say to me that'll make me afraid or feel embarrassed or intimidated. Like, it is what it is. Where I come from, I'm just trying to, every day I walk out my door is a risk. So it is what it is. Ain't no few sticks and stones, baby, sticks and stones. But anyway, so I ended up getting the voucher. I chose the voucher when it came to leaving the projects. I was getting ready to be torn down. Now, most people would have to do what's called a lottery. They would have to fill out an application and submit their voucher in order to, or submit their application in order to be entered into a lottery. And then I think at like a month or so, however long it takes, the place that does the Section 8 would draw the lottery out. And if your name gets picked, you'll figure out. Listen, I don't know because I didn't go through it, but I've heard how the process works. So it's like basically a lottery, and a lot of people either get picked or a lot of people don't. But I have to say, I was very, I guess if you want to call it, fortunate, which I have my pros and cons in regards to Section 8 myself from my own personal experience, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But if you want to call it a pro, if you want to call it a good thing, then I did not have to go through the lottery. It was basically handed to me once I requested it because of the fact that where I was living was being torn down. So I get the voucher. I ended up moving into a single home, but unfortunately things between the landlord and I did not work out because I actually have a father somewhat that was in my life at that present time anyway, who was very handy. And once my landlord learned that my father was a very handy man around the house, when things needed to be repaired, like especially the plumbing, which I actually looked up in tenants law for where I live, that is actually the landlord's responsibility, especially if the tenant did not cause the plumbing to uh, go wherever which way it went or become damaged. My landlord tried to get me to get my father to do the work around the house, and my father said, sure, I'll do it. Tell him he has to pay me, but I'll do it if he pays me. And when I ran that by my landlord, it was just like, no, he's not doing it. And eventually my landlord, he began to fix some things, but as time went on, he just didn't want to do anything anymore, and he was pretty much blaming me. And there were things that were my fault. I had little children, so there were things that were my fault, and I immediately would go to him and tell him, like, we done this, can I pay you, how much does this cost or whatever, and he would take the money and he would get it fixed. But eventually the things that were not our fault, especially with the plumbing was terrible there, as well as our furnace for our heat was terrible. He just was over it, like, because I had to keep calling him, like, dude, if you don't want me to keep calling you about this darn furnace and it's here in the winter and I got children and it's freaking cold, then you should probably replace the sucker. But it just, we had a huge falling out, couple of times, I would say a few times. And one time, like, even my uncle had to get involved because my uncle was right there with me when it happened, even though I tried to get my uncle to stay in the car, because I'm the kind of person, y'all, I'm the kind of person that's used to doing this stuff by myself. Like I was saying in regards to my father, for the most part, he wasn't in my life. It was just a short period of time where he was. But I'm the kind of person, I don't pull nobody in my mess. I put my big girl panties on, even though I'm quiet and reserved and as sweet as can be. When it comes to me recognizing that someone is trying to walk all over me and someone's disrespecting me, and especially myself and my family, then I'm a whole different person. And I don't get physical, but I will get legal. And I have a habit of studying things. If you all don't know, I filed bankruptcy on my own, uh, with the help of a website called upsolve.org. But that's just how my mind works. When I want something done, I do not convince myself I cannot do it. I figure out a way, I look it up, I study, and I get it done. And I'm so proud of myself for that. Now, if I can get myself on track career wise, I can do away with all this Section 8 and stuff. But anyway, getting back to the story, eventually I moved out of that place, ended up in some townhomes. When I first got there, it was nice, had a washer and dryer in there and everything. Over time, the townhome and the community started to show itself for what it really was, and I got out of there, and now currently I'm at an apartment. And now here's the kicker. I'm attempted to get out of here, and chances are I may have to do away with the Section 8 voucher to proceed with getting out of here. So, with all of that being said, some things that are cons. I'm going to start with the cons in regards to Section 8 voucher that I've experienced since the years that I have been on it. The cons is limited mobility. What I recognized from the time I was able to get the single home years ago when I first had the voucher, which would be 2013, I was able to get a single home. But after time, when would research where to move, no one wanted to take the voucher. Like, if I saw a single home, it would say no voucher. Like, they had exclamation points in the ad, like, no voucher, no voucher, like, we done with y'all, no voucher. And in a way, I cannot blame them, because I do understand and hear stories about how people are going into some of these homes and disrespecting the homes. And to be honest, it doesn't really just take someone with a voucher, it can be anybody that does that. But of course, there is already, for some people, a preconceived notion about individuals who even possess something like a voucher, or people who are even on what is considered to be public assistance. Although I believe there is a difference between a Section 8 voucher and public assistance as far as the funding goes, but either way, when many of us think about that, we already have like a stereotype and a bias towards people on it, and we believe they're one kind of way. We believe they're ratchet. Some of us, okay, believe this, that they're ratchet, they're loud, they're destructive, especially if they have little children, or if they are a woman with a guy. There is a layer to that as well. And I don't know if this is just a Northeast type of situation. I don't know what it's like globally or around, nationally, for whoever is accepting these vouchers. But I'm speaking more so of what I've experienced in Ohio. So maybe this is just a Northeast thing, but from what I see online and hear online, all kinds of people, doesn't matter the race or whatever, all kinds of people have their preconceived notions and stereotypes and bias about people that are on these programs. Fine. I don't beg. I've learned a long time ago not to beg to be in spaces that I am not wanted, and I'm okay with that. But I also had to take responsibility and realize, for one, I don't want to deal with this stuff for the rest of my life. I'm over it at this point, and I do want to be self sufficient. That is my goal. But at the same time, I also recognize that I have to let it go in order to live where I want to live in the spaces that I want to be in, especially when it comes to, like, again, I want to say maybe this is just a Northeast Ohio thing, but it seems as though where the voucher goes, where it's most accepted, is areas that are not uh family friendly. There are areas that are not family friendly. There are areas that would be considered the quote unquote, as my daughter would say, which I don't know how she learned this word, but it would be quote unquote the hood. Unfortunately, it's like most of the areas that I've been in with the voucher have not been idea areas ever since I've left the first place that I was living at, which was a more of a middle class area. Also, with the voucher too, when you do enter areas that are quote unquote middle class and you find a landowner who is willing to accept it, you have a community of people that feel some type of way about that, because these people consider themselves to be hardworking because they are middle class, and they're looking like, well, why do you get to be here because you have this voucher? That's not fair to the rest of us. And, even if you keep the peace, even if you try to stay to yourself, even if you are working, because I believe that's the biggest misconception, is that people that are on public assistance, people that are on these Section 8 vouchers don't work. And that is such a misconception, because to be honest, it is all very supplemental. Um, it is all very supplemental when it comes down to it. The price of the cost of living, especially when it comes to rent, is getting ridiculous. Again, I don't know if this is just a Northeast Ohio situation, but it is getting ridiculous. So these programs are seriously becoming supplemental rather than rather than just completely covering one's expenses, cost of living expenses. They're really just supplemental, because nowadays you really do have to work in order to maintain your household, whether you have public assistance or not. With all of that being said, so that was my huge con about it. Dealing with things like that, like you have limited mobility. Pros, I want to say this as far as a pro go. One of the pros is the fact that last year, during the beginning of this pandemic and middle, whatever, and even to this point, when other people were looking for eviction moratoriums, and though some of those people may be facing hell when this eviction moratorium actually lifts, people that have the voucher, chances are not facing that kind of stress, because regardless, their rent was being paid. Even if they had a rent obligation, as long as they were meeting their rent obligation, their rent was being paid. And I find it ironic that even in recent conversations that I hear on social media in regards to Section 8 vouchers, no one's really talking about this. No one's, I hear the negativity in regards to Section 8, but I don't hear anyone talking about, well, you got to think about it as a landowner. If you were accepting Section 8, chances are you were sitting back cool when your other pals in your circle who may have been landowners were just talking about how they weren't getting any rent from their tenant, and they were stressed out, backed up on mortgage or backed up on the water bill or whatever. Meanwhile, that landowner who was accepting Section 8 was fine, because he was getting, or he or she was getting their money, because Section 8 is going to give them their money consistently, as long as the paperwork is all in by the tenant and by the landowner, and as long as that tenant pays their portion, then that tenant and that landowner had nothing to worry about during this entire pandemic. No one talks about that. If someone has been talking about it, I didn't hear it. But at the end of the day, this is not me pleading pleading for anyone to get on it and for anyone to accept it as a landowner. This is just me bringing attention to what I've been observing as far as the conversations go around Section 8, and especially as someone who holds the voucher. Another pro, which will be my last pro, because to be honest, I don't know, I got some other ones from my personal experience, but everyone's experience is not the same, and that's what I said. Like, some people think that every person that's on it doesn't work and stuff, and that's just false, because I'm gonna tell you, I work my behind off, but my situation is different from others. I just happen to have 3 children, so when it comes to my income and, the what is it, the below poverty line situation and whatnot, I just happened to be there. Not trying to stay there, mind you. Let me make that evidently clear. I had my children. I'm responsible for them. I recognize that. And I'm getting away from all this stuff. I'm working my behind off to do so. And I'm going to continue to do so. And I'm not going to allow anyone to make me feel ashamed. Before I get to that last pro about being on Section 8, let me just say this. I was working at Amazon last year, y'all. I have to throw this in there because I did a video about this, but I took away those videos from this channel to focus more on entertainment. But I was working at Amazon last year, and there was like three guys who all had crushes on me. Neither one of them was talking to each other initially. Like, they didn't care for each other. There was just three guys randomly at Amazon. So they all had crushes on me. Two of them I gave the time of the day. One of them I didn't. He was a married man. And the two that I gave the time of the day with, I got away from. When I left that facility, do you know all three of them? Now, they knew I was on Section 8. Long story as to how they ended up knowing, but they knew I was on it. I wasn't ashamed of it, so I didn't make it any secret. But anyway, that would be a long story to try to explain why each of them knew. But in the end, come to find out, someone that I knew that still worked there, that I was cool with, she came and told me, she was like, because we used to talk on the phone, she was like, girl, don't you know when you left, these three dudes that, you used to be cool with or talk to or whatever, they all got together and started talking about you being on Section 8. And I thought it was so funny that they would do that, because here we all were working for Amazon, making the same amount of money, and you have the nerve to talk about me being on Section 8. I thought it was hilarious. Like, what would make you any better than me when we're working the same hours, both, or we're all full time? I'm making the same amount of money as y'all. Y'all better be lucky I even gave y'all the time of the day, because I know I could have did better, which is why I did eventually wake up and got away from all of y'all. So it's just interesting, the things that are said about people who are on Section 8, but no one cares. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's, for me, it's survival. For me, it is about doing what I need to do in the moment. I'm not concerned about carrying the so-called Black community on my shoulders, where I hear often also on social media as well as offline, things that are said about Black women when it comes to public assistance, and how it took the Black man out the house. Child, it can keep the Black man out my house. And that's not to be funny to every Black man, but I'm gonna be 100% serious. My concern is not random Black men. My concern is about my family, and my children and myself. I don't care, So, and I don't believe that is true for a lot of us. And I would say even myself, it kept me from having to deal with toxic men in general, no matter the race. Doesn't matter the race, not just Black men, but any toxic man, because unfortunately there are men out here, and I'm sure there are women as well, but I'm speaking from an experience of a heterosexual woman, that there are men out here who literally want you to struggle. They don't want you to have a way to live on your own, because they want to be able to live with you, go 50-50 with you, if they're not. And then sometimes they could be paying all the bills, but they want to be able to control you. They want to be able to be toxic. They want to be in your presence, but still go out the door and be with another woman. They want to have the ability to molest your children, disrespect you, disrespect your children, abuse you, emotionally abuse you, physically abuse you, etc. So I don't care about this so-called talk about the public assistance took the Black man out the house. I don't believe in it. For my experience, when I think about my grandmother and what she went through with two of the men in her lives, because it was only two really that were the ones that she procreated with, if it was not for public assistance, if it was not for that, I can't imagine the toxicity that she would have had to continue to endure. So when I think about that, I think to myself, you know what? I don't care what nobody say. I would choose everything on the line of public assistance, if it meant that it would keep me from ever relying on a toxic person. That toxic person doesn't just have to be a spouse. That toxic person can be a family member that you feel like you have to live with until you get yourself on your feet. And mind you, there are people out here like that too. Why is that more acceptable than public assistance? Listen, anyway, what you feel about me is your business. What I feel about me is my business. But from my own experience, I've learned to not internalize. And now, it took a lot of purging myself from caring about stereotypes and believing that I was those stereotypes, knowing fully well I've been grinding and been on the path that I need to be the best person that I can be, the best mother that I can be. And actually, I set aside my career goals so that I could focus on homeschooling my children, because I felt like their well-being was far more important than me making money. So I had to start to adjust my life in a way where I could make money at home and still be able to homeschool my children. Because for me, I'm like, well, if I have to choose a job versus Section 8, if I have to choose one or the other, I'm choosing the Section 8 so I can be in my children's presence more. Now the goal is to make money at home while homeschooling my children so that I can do away with the Section 8 altogether and put us in a healthy living environment, because I'm gonna tell you where we at right now is not healthy. And that's the truth. So that's why I'm so grateful to be growing this channel, but I also want to stay transparent. It is what it is. This is who I am. Unfortunately, if you don't like it, stay subscribed, because you can troll me as long as I get them views and you don't skip those ads. But anyway, last pro when it comes to Section 8, okay? In my opinion, one of the last pros is the fact that there is a program called Financial Self-Sufficiency. This program is actually being talked about, not a lot, but by some individuals on YouTube, which I'll leave the link in the description box to a YouTuber, a woman who actually talks about how I believe it's her. I think it's her that took her voucher and bought a house with it. And like literally, I guess the house was being constructed in the background where she's showing the picture. Now, how did she do this? The program is called Financial Self-Sufficiency. So basically, as a voucher participant holder, you are able to go into this program. It's FSS for short, where you choose a goal, you choose a time frame. So for example, my goal could be I want to buy a house 10 years from now. I go into this program, I write out my goal, I submit it to those who are running the program. And what happens is they say you want to go in when your rent obligation is at the least, because when your rent obligation increases, they take your rent increase that you pay each month and they put it into an escrow account. They collect that money. So say if your goal is to buy a house in 10 years, they will literally hold your rent increase that you're paying to the property management. They're holding that and this is the voucher holder people, the Section 8 people. They're holding your rent increase in an escrow account that literally grows for 10 years. Now, don't ask me about taxes. I forgot what they said in regards to taxes, but they're holding it in that escrow account for 10 years. So by 10 years, when you're ready to meet that goal, when you've completed that goal, or however that works when it comes to buying a house, they explain this stuff, so you can always ask them. But by 10 years, you basically get that money back. That money is yours. You take that money and you buy the house that you desire. Now, you think about it, you're going to have to pay the rent anyway. When you have that rent increase from maybe a raise at work, or you got a better job or promotion, whatever the case may be, you're going to have to pay the rent anyway. So why not enter in this program as a Section 8 voucher holder in order to not only get out of Section 8, but to buy a freaking house? So this is something that's not talked about. And I feel like a lot of people want to hammer individuals with shame. We act like some of us act like the only folks who are on Section 8 are Black women with children. I know folks that are men that are on this. I've met them down at the darn Section 8 office. Men with no children, older men, younger men, older women, younger women. Some have children, some don't. All different kind of races. But unfortunately, because I can only speak on the experience that I've had as what is considered to be a Black woman, I understand and hear the chatter that is spoken in my so-called community, which I don't claim at all. I don't claim nobody's community. Let's put it like that. If you don't know by now, I don't claim nobody's community. I take responsibility for myself as an individual. But with all that being said, I hear the negative chatter. Like, I feel like we're quick to tear each other down. Like, how dare you have it this way, and I sit up here have to work dang near 7 days a week to get these same things, instead of figuring out a way to strategize and think about how that person can use that to better themselves. But I mean, of course, if seeing each other progress was the ultimate goal, we would have met that goal a long time ago as a so-called community. It's not what that is about. It's about tearing each other down and making sure that one person doesn't get over more than you're able to get over, or even come close to where you are. Because I even heard, like, even some so-called Black women even talk about how they feel Section 8 holders, like women, should not be allowed to move into nicer neighborhoods. So people have their opinions, but if you are someone that is a voucher holder under the sound of my breath, Who cares? Do what you have to do for you and yours, because at the end of the day, if you are in the line, in a food, what is it, food line, when they, give away the food, it's not coming to me right now, pantry line. If you're in a food pantry line, who's going to help you? They're not, no one's coming to your rescue. The same people that's dogging you when you have this stuff to assist you will be the same folks that's not there when you don't have this stuff to assist you. If you were somewhere downtown and you got your children, or you don't have any children and you're at a homeless shelter, again, these same people that are talking about you will be the same people that would not come to your rescue or even try to help you, or hand out anything. If you are someone who is busting your behind at work and about damn near about to kill yourself with high blood pressure and etc., and someone's patting you on the back saying, oh, good job, at least you're working. But these are the same people that when you're on your deathbed, because you have stressed yourself out to the max from trying to make ends meet, again, they are nowhere to be found. Forget what everybody got to say. They don't have to live your life. You do. And no one says you have to be on this stuff for the rest of your life. But if you know you are doing what you need to do for your situation, and all of our situations don't look the same, and you're doing what you have to do for your situation, who cares? Who cares what? Because everybody always gonna have something to say. It don't matter. It don't matter. You could be wealthy, they gonna always have something to say. It doesn't matter. What I learned from my situation is that this Section 8 voucher has helped me out a lot. Again, when most people were stressing just recently about the eviction moratorium, and when the whole shutdown occurred and good hardworking folks was being laid off left and right, mind you, I really wasn't stressing about anything. I was actually still working, to be honest, which is interesting in itself, because again, I told you I was working for Amazon. I made a video about that, how Amazon was still hiring even during the pandemic. But while everyone else was stressing, I wasn't stressing out. And matter of fact, because I wasn't stressing out, it was enabling me to be able to help others around me when I was getting my little check, right? But with all of that being said, I don't have any regrets about it. But I know for me personally, because it is at a point where you have limited mobility, and it's, for, in my opinion, where I'm at, okay, again, Ohio, it seems as though the voucher pushes you into communities that are not safe, not healthy. It's like it's now intentional, it seems like. I know it's time for me to get off of it. Plus, I desire a home, a nice, big, beautiful home. I don't desire to own it. And that's my only issue, because I am someone who wants to travel. I want to become an expat. I want to travel. And I already told my children, listen, I'm giving y'all my everything right now. But when y'all turn 18, your mama gone. All right, I'm going to set y'all up financially, but your mama gone. I'm flying away. I am getting the heck up out this country. I'm trying to, travel and see what else is out here. Go find my handsome, mysterious man over in Australia. And that is it. So that is it, y'all. Total transparency. Again, I'll probably turn off the like button for any trolls, but I'm gonna leave the comment section open, because I ain't never scared. Ain't nobody worried about y'all. I'm just kidding. So that is it. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.